Welcome, Dr. Epic here. And what we're going to do in this section is we're going to talk about the tropical forest, forest animals, the jaguar, the hero twins, and finally, the rebirth of the Maize God. We're going to continue and finish our discussion of the classic Maya world following that outline right above my head. Now, traditional Maya agriculture does not clear-cut the forest, but rather what they do is they scatter their cornfields throughout the forest, as you can see in this satellite image, cutting tiny little patches out of the forest to grow their corn, but leaving large portions of the forest itself intact. So these Maya communities would have not been, a forest, a village, and then a bunch of cornfields, but rather all three mixed together in this sort of very fruitful mosaic. And in these forest preserves, the Maya are practicing arboriculture. They are selecting certain trees to live, and they're cutting down other trees. They are cultivating especially useful trees. These include things like ceiba, copal, mahogany, Spanish cedar. I'm going to mention two of these important tree species very quickly. And one of the most important is the rubber tree. That's what it looks like on the upper left, a natural rubber tree. And before we invented synthetic rubber, all of our rubber had to be natural. And you look right up above me, that's how you get natural rubber. You make a spiral cut on the bark of the tree, the sap runs, this whitish sap runs into these buckets, and then you can take the rubber and then shape it before it cools, and shape it into things like rubber stoppers for those little tobacco flasks, or a hard rubber ball to play the ball game. And these are modern depictions of the Maya ball game, the Mesoamerican ball game being played. And the Mesoamerican ball game was intensely important. It was probably the prime sporting event of its day. And here are modern ball players. The ball game was always and has continually been used, and in fact is enjoying something of a 21st century renaissance. These are modern ball players in southern Mexico. And the point of the ball game, there were probably several different ball games, but the thing with the ball is that the goal was to keep the ball in motion, to keep the ball from stopping or hitting the ground. So they would take this kind of hard medicine ball. You can see it's not very big, and these are definitely not basketballs. These are hard, solid rubber balls. And the point of it is to keep the ball in motion, but you can't actually touch or kick the ball. The ball could only be struck with the sides of the body, the thighs, or the hips, or sometimes with the shoulder and the upper arm. And the point of the ball game was to keep the ball in motion and, if possible, score points by putting that heavy rubber ball through that vertical hoop that you can see there on the upper left. These could not have been high-scoring games, because that looks like really, really difficult. And the ball game is the sport of kings. They show images of kings and lords and even gods playing the ball game. So stick a pin in the ball game. We're going to get back to it in a bit. But far more important than the rubber tree was the chocolate tree, Theobroma cacao. And there's the chocolate tree you see there on the left. These large pods fruit directly from the trunk. It's a sort of a medium-sized tree. It grows best under canopy. It takes a lot of water, and it's actually a very delicate tree. You have to really, really know what you're doing to produce high-quality cacao from the chocolate tree. And if you can, when these pods fruit, just like that, you split them open, and it's this mix of pulpy fruit which can be eaten. But the really important thing, what the Maya really want from these cacao pods, are the seeds, those little black things you see right there. These seeds can be fermented, they can be roasted, they can be ground up, they can be mixed with water or honey, and they can produce chocolatl, chocolate. And some of the best chocolate in the world is Maya chocolate, because they've been growing it, they've been preparing chocolate for bloody 3,000 years. Traditionally, Maya chocolate is drunk in a heavy drink. It's not eaten above, although it's fine, they'll eat it. We get our word chocolate from the Aztec word, from the Nahuatl word xocoatl, but the Maya word has also entered our language. The Maya word is cacao, or cocoa. And chocolate was incredibly important. It was the drink of kings. It would be mixed with fermented honey. It would be mixed with other intoxicants. It would be drunk as an alcoholic drink. And it was so important that the chocolate seeds themselves, the cacao, was used as a type of currency. And we'll talk about the commercialized Maya economy in the next module. But for right now, just remember that cacao beans were used as currency in these classic era markets, such as the one depicted over there in the murals from the city-state of Calakmul. And these marketplaces probably would have strongly resembled modern Maya marketplaces that you see there on the lower left. So the Maya had this incredibly commercialized economy with cacao beans acting as currency. It was also used like little red shells, probably bits of jade and lengths of cotton cloth called mantas. But anyway, in the classic Maya world, literally, money grew on trees. Now, the other thing about these forest preserves is that they would use these as hunting preserves, that these forested areas would act as hunting preserves. It would allow for the Maya to cultivate local populations of deer, of peccary, of sereques, of tapirs, and even monkeys. The classic Maya world did not have very many domesticated animals. They had turkeys, they had dogs, and they had stingless bees and a type of duck. That was about it. For the rest of their protein needs, for the rest of their meat needs, they had to hunt for it. And their result was to sort of maintain the forest as both a forest preserve and as a hunting preserve. They needed to maintain healthy populations of deer, healthy populations of tapir, and these forest animals to maintain meat in their diet. However, because they are maintaining populations of animals in the forest, this is going to bring them into close contact with forest predators. These include crocodiles, these include snakes, but most importantly, this includes the king of the forest predators, the jaguar. And there is the jaguar itself, the biggest cat in the Western Hemisphere. It has the strongest bite strength of any known feline species. Jaguars can actually crush crocodile skulls in their jaws and have been known to do it. Right up above me, there is the dancing underworld jaguar, the water lily jaguar, one of the 9 lords of the night. And the Maya particularly venerated the jaguar. They didn't call him, he wasn't a cat. He was not like a normal animal of the forest. His name was Balaam. And Balaam, there's the Maya glyph for Balaam over there. A Balaam wasn't just a big predatory cat. A Balaam, the same word stands for jaguar, it stands for shaman, sorcerers, wizards, shapeshifters. All of these are Balaam. The jaguar is a lord of the night. He lives in Jeboba. He comes out at night and he thirsts for human blood. And he can change shape and he can do all sorts of spooky, crazy things. And they would sometimes sacrifice jaguars and give them all of the funerary rites and all of the honors devoted to kings and lords. There's the sacrifice of a jaguar on a Maya altar. This was shown in National Geographic. And in fact, they've found tombs, and they thought they were like kings or lords inside these Maya tombs. And they opened up these tombs, and there's a jaguar laid out as if he is a great king. The jaguars are not just another forest animal. They're these almost supernatural entities from Jeboba. They come out with malice in their heart, and they thirst for human blood. I'm going to show you a disturbing, scary image of a jaguar thirsting for human blood. Brace yourself. He wants your flesh. Look at him. Look at him. He hungers for human blood. He's going to come for you. He's absolutely adorable. Absolutely adorable. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Maya have probably one of the richest traditions of literature in the Western Hemisphere. It is a pre-Columbian, it goes all the way back to the pre-Columbian period. It goes back for hundreds of years. It goes all the way back to the Classic period. And you have these literary stories, and you have these genealogical histories, and you have these record of events and calendric cycles that are all recorded in both the monumental history of the Maya, in the handful of books that survived the Maya conquest, and in a handful of plays and a handful of books that survived up till the present day. And probably one of the best books written on the totality of Maya literature is Dennis Tedlock's very excellent 2,000 Years of Mayan Literature, right up above my head. I couldn't recommend that book more highly. It's a really, really good book. But probably the most accessible and the most famous of all of the works of Maya literature is the Popol Vuh. The Popol Vuh, we actually don't know how exactly old the Popol Vuh is. We know that the Popol Vuh was transcribed in the early 16th century in the highlands of Guatemala. It was transcribed from probably an original hieroglyphic text into a text that made use of the Latin alphabet. But the original, which was probably written in hieroglyphs, has not survived to the present, but copies of the Latin text has. Now, the Popol Vuh itself is the story of the creation of the world. It details the creation of the world, the story and the myths of all these gods and heroes, the history of the Quiche Maya people as they wandered after the ruin of the city of the gods collapses, and the Quiche people have to wander out from the ruin of the city of the gods, and they wander this earth, and they go on this great like mythological migration led by this god called Tohil, who promises them a land and who guides them to this promised land, which was, in this case, highland Guatemala. But probably one of the more interesting stories in the Popol Vuh, certainly the story that everybody wants to hear from the Popol Vuh, is the story of the hero twins. And that's what I'm going to tell you right now. The story of these two hero twins, Unampu and Xabalenque. And they are the hero twins. And the hero twins appear in the Popol Vuh, but we have images of the hero twins and stories of the hero twins that go all the way back to the classic period, for 1,000 years before the Popol Vuh was written down. And here are classic images of the hero twins. Now, the hero twins themselves they're heroes. They go on all these crazy adventures. They have to fight like a bird that's like made out of metal. And here they are shooting him down from the top of his tree with a blowgun. And they go on all these adventures because the hero twins they're heroes. And the hero twins do not actually know who their father is. They live in the house of their grandmother, and her name is Shmukane, and she's also called Ischel, and she's the goddess of the moon. So the hero twins live in the house of their grandmother, who does not treat them very well. Grandmother kind of treats the hero twins quite badly because she greatly favors another set of twins who also live in the same house, the monkey twins. And the monkey twins are the older siblings of the hero twins. And the hero twins go on all of these crazy adventures, and grandmother treats them very badly. Grandmother treats the monkey twins really, really well, and she treats the hero twins very, very badly. And the grandmother has a lot of resentment towards the hero twins for reasons that we'll find out in just a tick. And one of the things she does is she gives them a series of very, very difficult tasks to perform. And grandmother, one of the tasks she gives them is to clear a cornfield in the forest. So the hero twins go ahead and do it. They go out there and they cut down all these trees and they burn it and they clear this cornfield. And then they go back at night. And then they're awoken the next day by grandmother yelling at them. I thought I told you to clear a cornfield. And they're like, well, we did. And she's like, well, where is it? So they go out and they realize that cornfield that they had cleared the previous day has been replanted. The trees have all been pushed over where they were, and now there's no place to grow corn. And then the monkey twins, that's the monkey twins right up above me. It's the monkey twins, make fun of the hero twins, and the hero twins do it again, and the exact same thing happens. They clear an area of the forest to plant corn, but grandmother wakes them up in the morning very furious because they go outside to find that their cornfield has been completely covered with the trees of the forest. So they decide, okay, well, there's magical shenanigans going on, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. So for the third time, the hero twins clear a patch of forest, but this time, instead of going back to the house of grandmother, they decide to wait, and they're going to see what's going to happen. And what they see is that as soon as night falls, all of the forest animals come out of the forest, and they start pushing all of the trees over into the cornfield, covering up this new cornfield by pushing all of the trees and the plants of the forest back over the cut area. And the hero twins aren't going to stand for this. So the hero twins jump out and they start running towards the animals and they start grabbing all these animals. And all the animals run away into the forest. And the only animal that they can catch is that fellow there on the upper left. And his name is Rat. So they capture Rat. And they say, "What's going on, Rat?" And Rat won't talk. Rat won't talk. By the way, that's a jungle rat right there on the lower left. That's a Sereke, if I remember correctly. At any rate, so they capture Rat, and Rat won't talk. So they decide to get Rat to talk by holding him over a fire and burning his tail. And Rat howls as all the hair burns off the tail of the rat. And that's why, to this day, rats don't have hair on their tails, because the hero twins held the original rat over the fire. So Rat finally confesses, and Rat says, "Okay, I've got a tale to tell you." And this is, if you study hero cycles, this is the call to adventure. This is the moment where adventure appears to your heroes. Rat says, "Okay, I'm going to tell you what the deal is, why the animals won't let you grow corn. And it's because you are not meant to be farmers. You guys are not supposed to grow corn in the forest. What you're supposed to do is rescue your father from the underworld, to rescue your father from Jeboba." And this is what Rat says. "Okay, your father is none other than the corn god himself. The maize god himself is your father." And Rat tells them the story of the death and capture of the maize god. What he says many years ago, that the maize god and his brother, the cacao god, the god of chocolate, were famous ball players. And they roamed the earth playing the ball game and thudding the ball off the ground and thudding the ball off the walls of the ball court. And their fame grew, and their passion for the ball game grew, and the noise from their matches grew. And this grew to annoy the 9 lords of the night, the 9 lords of the underworld, the 9 lords of Jeboba. And so the 9 lords of Jeboba plotted to kill and capture the maize god. So the 9 lords of the night invited the maize god and the corn god down to the depths of Jeboba to play ball with them. They say, "We want to play the ball game against you famous and powerful ball players." And they agreed. But the 9 lords of the underworld were not to be trusted. And eventually, the maize god was tricked and the corn god was tricked. They lost the ball game. The 9 lords of Jeboba pounced on them. And the 9 lords of the night killed the maize god, and they killed the corn god. And they took their heads and they hung them up in a tree of gourds to be their trophy. But there was a daughter of one of the 9 lords of the night, and her name is Princess Shipwick. Princess Shipwick. Her name is translated as Lady Blood. So Princess Lady Blood, Princess Blood, her father is one of the 9 lords of the underworld. And in fact, her father is a lord called Gathered Blood, who's a guy called God El. And she visits the tree where these heads are hanging. And she falls in love with the beautiful head of the maize god. And she eventually, I don't know, maybe it talked to her and she talked to it. She falls in love with the maize god. She cups her hands and he spits his seed into her waiting hands. Okay. And because she wants to bear his children, and she does, she becomes pregnant with the hero twins. But to avoid the wrath of her father, she flees Jeboba and she goes to the only place that would give her refuge. And that is the house of grandmother, the mother of the maize god, Ishchel, the moon goddess. And there she gives birth to the hero twins. But grandmother is very upset. She had 2 great, powerful god sons before. Now they've been captured and killed in Jeboba, and now all she has left is this Princess Blood and, these 2, kind of worthless hero twins. And this is why she probably treated the hero twins quite badly. And that's when Rat tells the hero twins what they should do. Rat says, "Look, you're not meant to be farmers. It is your guys' call to adventure to go into the underworld and rescue your father and your uncle. And here are some absolutely wonderful images. The story of the Hero Twins has inspired modern artists as well as classical artists. And you have these modern artists have painted these beautiful mythological images of scenes from the story of the Hero Twins, scenes from the Popol Vuh. And these are from a fantastic fantasy illustrator called John Jude Palancar. Just absolutely amazing. I absolutely love that picture right up above. I bought a big poster of it. It looks really great on my wall. So if you want to throw some love to really good illustrators, go get one of Palancar's images. At any rate, so Rat tells them what they need to do to rescue their father and uncle. What they need to do is to find the ball-playing equipment of their father and their uncle and become great players of the ball game. And here are classic period images. These images, are from the classic period. They're from, maybe 700 AD. So this is a 1300-year-old image of the Hero Twins playing the ball game. And they become great ball players. They wear the regalia, they play in ball courts, they thump the ball off the floor, they thump the ball off the sides of ball courts, they notch the ball through the hoops, the crowds roar, their thumping of their feet on the ball court floor annoys the Nine Lords of the Night. This is what the Nine Lords of the Night did when they originally grew annoyed at the corn god and the chocolate god. And the Nine Lords of Jeboba hatch a scheme to kill these new famous ball players, these Hero Twins. And they let it be known, they issue an invitation to the Hero Twins. Come to the underworld, you famous ball players. We like to play the ball game. Come to the underworld and play the ball game with us. We would love to have you as our guests. And this is what the Hero Twins do. They gather their ball-playing gear and they descend into Jeboba to play ball game against the Nine Lords of Jeboba. And here are Nine Lords of Jeboba again. Here's some of them. There's the Water Lily Jaguar. Oh, there's the Water Lily Jaguar up there on the left. There's the Great Toad. There's the huge snake. Now, this image itself was painted on a ceramic vase. And in fact, they're called Codex-style vases. There's actually what the vase looks like on the lower left. And the thing about this image is that we look at them in artificial light under fluorescent bulbs, but we forget that these images were never meant to be looked at with artificial light. Many of these images were meant to be looked at in either natural light, which is dappled through trees, or through firelight, which is of course flickering and moving. And many of these vessels were made in such a way that the sides of the vessel are actually slightly reflective. They're highly glossy. So if you held one of these vessels, and you held it and you stared at this vessel, and it was nighttime and there was a fire and that was your only source of light, the surface of the vessel would reflect the flickering firelight and animate the images. So you have these incredibly beautiful Maya images, and they were painted in such a way to be animated, so the images would move if you look at them under flickering firelight. I've actually done this in real life. The images do actually seem to move. It's actually, this is like the height. This is exactly how good these Maya ceramic artists were. Anyway, back to our story. So the Hero Twins descend into the underworld and play ball against the Nine Lords of the Night. And here's an image of them playing ball with the Nine Lords of the Night, painted by an incredible artist named Terry Rutledge. Absolutely incredible. In fact, he's actually made it underwater because you can see catfish swimming across the bottom of the ball court. But however good the Hero Twins are at the ball game, as they play against the Nine Lords of Jeboba, they're not good enough to beat them. They will play all day, they will play in the afternoon, and they cannot defeat the Nine Lords of Jeboba. And every night, they're housed in a different house in Jeboba where the Nine Lords of the Night try to kill them. One night, they have to stay in a house that's like full of razors, and they have to survive the House of Razors by using magic. Another night, they have to stay in a house that's full of blood-sucking bats, and they have to use magic to stay alive during the night. And another night they have to stay in a house that's full of burning tapirs. And basically the hero twins grow to realize they can't actually defeat the 9 Lords of the Night in the ball game, and that their magic can only keep them alive for so long. And eventually they realize that the only way to finally defeat the 9 Lords of the Night and rescue their father and uncle is by losing the ball game. And they do. They lose the ball game. The ball strikes the ground and comes to a halt. The 9 Lords of the Night, cackle in glee, seize the hero twins and cut off their heads. And they burn their bodies, and they take the heads of the hero twins and they throw them in the river, where they come to rest at the bottom of the riverbed. And right up above are classic period images of the skulls of the hero twins rotting at the bottom of a river, where the flesh and the heads of the hero twins are consumed by catfish. That's what the fish are in those images. These are catfish, and they're eating the heads of the hero twins. But the hero twins are reborn inside the bodies of the catfish. And the hero twins realize that, freed of their old bodies, their magic is much more powerful. And they use their magic to recreate their bodies, to bring themselves back to life. And then they go back to the court of the 9 Lords of Jeboba. They're disguised as magicians. And they go to the 9 Lords of Jeboba and say, "Oh, we are magicians here to entertain you." And the 9 Lords say, "Okay, entertain us." So here are the dancing magicians of the 9 Lords of the hero twins, dancing with the 9 Lords of the Night. There's Water Lily Jaguar, you can see right up above me. There's another of these old lords, and he's got like knives coming out of his like elbows and ankles and stuff. And the hero twins, who are disguised as magicians, like capture a dog, and they take the dog and they cut the head off the dog, they kill the dog, and then they bring the dog back to life. And the 9 Lords of the Night are like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. That's incredible. How did you do that?" And they're like, "We're magicians. It's a trick." Because they have powerful magic, because they've been reborn as catfish. So the hero twins say, "We can do it with not just dogs, we can do it with each other." And one of the hero twins grabs the other and cuts off his head, kills his brother, and then brings his brother back to life. And the hero twins say, "We can do this with anyone. We could do this with you." And the 9 Lords of the Night say, "Yes, we want to die. We want to die." So the 9 Lords of the Night, and that's what this image right up above is possibly depicting. The 9 Lords of the Night are dancing. They're intoxicated with the idea of being killed and brought back to life. And they put themselves in the power of these magicians, who are secretly the hero twins. And the hero twins kill, one by one, the 9 Lords of the Night. But they don't bring them back to life. And the spirits of the 9 Lords of the Night are howling in anger at them as the hero twins take off their disguises and are revealed that they have finally triumphed over death. They have triumphed over the 9 Lords of the Night. They go to the tree where the heads of their father and uncle are hanging. They lift the head of their father off the tree. They place him on the ground. They water him. And then they take a magic axe and they smash it into the earth. The earth itself is depicted in Maya art as a giant turtle. And when they bring down the magic axe, they crack the back of the turtle, and then they reach into the heart of the earth and they pull their father up, resurrected. And here is an image of it. There's a drawing of it on the left, so they can get a better image of what's going on. That's the hero twins on either side of their brother Unampu and Shabalanke, and they are rescuing their father from the underworld. They are pulling the Maize God up from the earth and bringing him back to life. This is this incredibly powerful theme in all of Maya religion, in all of pre-Columbian Maya spirituality. This is the moment of the triumph of the hero twins, the resurrection of the Maize God, emerging from the broken back of the earth turtle, being watered by the sacred waters of the hero twins, and they're bringing him back to life as they brought themselves back to life after their defeat by the 9 Lords of the Night. The story ends with all of the parties ascending to heaven. The hero twins ascend the world tree to the sky realm. They climb the world tree itself. The world tree has its roots in Jeboba, its trunk in our world, and its branches up in the sky. Unampu becomes the sun. His brother Shabalanque becomes the morning star. That's Venus. But with the Maize God and the Corn God, because they die deep in the earth, they can't ever go straight up to the sky. They instead have to come out of the earth every year, being constantly reborn and sacrificed. The Maize God and the Corn God must descend every year to be continually reborn from the earth, just as trees and just as corn rise out of the ground. And just like the hero twins, the modern Maya farmers have to work. They have to dig into the back of the earth and pull up the corn and pull up the chocolate to make the earth fertile. And this is how we got corn and chocolate, through the adventures of the hero twins and in their final defeat of the 9 lords of the underworld. Or at least that's how the Maya explain it. And this is what you have in these traditional Maya settlements. They probably were not too dissimilar from these sort of jungle villages that you find today. That you find these traditional Maya settlements would have been this mix of rainforests and cornfields, and it would have looked nothing like the cities we're familiar with today, where you've got a dense city and then a countryside scattered all around it. But rather, these huge Maya cities would have looked kind of like this drawing right up above me. That it would have been this garden city where you would have had habitation and temples and cornfields and forest and residences and house groups, and everything would have been mixed together. That's why these Maya cities are often characterized as garden cities, because there would have been no real division between town and city and country and forest and cornfield. That everyone would have lived closely mixed in and among the rainforests. But doing that requires a very, very careful balance. You can't cut too much of the forest. You have to take care of the forest. You have to let your cornfields go fallow every now and again, and let the forest, like the animals in the hero twin story, let the animals close the forest over your old cornfields. That living like this, you can build these huge, beautiful cities in the rainforest, but it requires a very careful balance. And as you will soon see, it can be very easily upset. So, in summation, what do we know about Maya agriculture? 1, it requires impeccable timing. You gotta cut at a certain time of the year. You have to burn at a certain time of the year. You have to plant at a certain time of the year. 2, if you can do all this correctly, it is highly productive. Sometimes you can get 2 or 3 harvests during the rainy season. 3, it produces a lot of corn, but the corn cannot be reliably stored. 4, it can be met with localized disaster, hurricanes and drought and so forth. But these are highly localized, and what might devastate one farmer might leave his neighbor completely unaffected. 5, it is carefully interwoven with the surrounding jungle and involves a careful balance with jungle and soil. And finally, 6, it involves lots of other crops as well. That you have just the crops of the trees, you have rubber, you have chocolate, you have fruits, you have beans, you have chili peppers, and you have chocolate. But ultimately, the most important part of both Maya cosmology and Maya agriculture are the same thing: corn. Maya agriculture is all about the corn. The most important classic deity is the Maize God. The central myth of the hero twins tells the story of the yearly death and resurrection of the Maize God. It's all about corn. It's all about the corn. And that figurine on the left, that's the corn god. And literally corn is growing out of his body. And in fact, people wanted to look like the corn god. There's an image of the corn god. This is an image of Pakal from the city of Palenque. But they would often modify their skulls. As you can see it right up above me. This is called tabular deformation or tabular modification, where when the child was young, they would bind the skull, and the person grows up looking like corn. And they would accentuate this, as you see in this plaster sculpture there on the left. This resemblance to corn would be exaggerated. They would put plumes and feathers on top of the head. They want you to look like big, beautiful corn. Now, the myth of the Maize God involves his death and sacrifice. The Maize God is resurrected every year. He gives himself to his enemies. He's decapitated. His body is then placed in the earth, because the earth is symbolized by a turtle. And through the actions of humans and intercessor gods, the turtle shell is broken. And just like the hero twins, farmers have to pull up the soil from the earth. He ascends as the sun, the hot and bright sun, because it's the end of the rainy season. It's now time for the hot, dry season. And at the end of the dry season, he will again be sacrificed. He'll go into the earth, and this creates a cycle of birth and death and sacrifice. And his annual sacrifice means that all humans owe a yearly debt to the Maize God, a spiritual debt that must continually be repaid. Well, how do you repay the debt of death and sacrifice and resurrection? You repay that through sacrifice. The Maize God needs sacrifice, and the annual cycle needs sacrifice to continue. Blood sacrifice ensures that the rains will come, that there will not be a drought, that corn will rise from the turtle's back, and that the Maize God will smile upon your kingdom. And we have images of sacrifice from the classic period. This is heart excision. You have lots of different types of sacrifice, but this is the type of sacrifice that most people are probably familiar with. Here's a sacrificial victim right up above me, stretched across an altar, having his heart pulled out from underneath his rib cage. There is an image. This is a drawing of a golden plate that was recovered from the northern city of Chichen Itza, and you can see the heart excision is being pulled. The heart is being pulled from the body of the victim. The Maya did heart excision, but they did lots of other sacrifices as well. So this is a debt that must be continually repaid. If something is not going well for your kingdom, if something is not going well for your city, obviously you're not paying your debt. So you have to double down on this. But I do want to point something out. These Maya groups aren't sacrificing their own people. They're often raiding enemies and attacking their neighbors for acceptable sacrifice. And if something is going wrong with the world, it means that this cycle has been upset, that the Maize God is not being resurrected properly, largely because this debt, this blood sacrificial debt, is not being paid correctly. Now, we've talked about agriculture, we've talked about mythology. We're going to get to the actual archaeology of the classic Maya period in the next section, and I will see you there.